I think more shock and dauntingness was more the feeling I felt. But it was, the thing is, it's...
Prince William had prepared himself for difficult conversations about his mother, but nothing could have prepared him for the request placed before him that morning. Inside a private Windsor sitting room, Meghan asked to be granted possession of Diana's sealed royal correspondence, a collection so sensitive that palace custodians had classified it as forbidden family material. William did not answer immediately. He simply stared at the request, stunned by what she believed she had the right to claim. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William read the wording twice. Each sentence struck harder. Meghan had submitted a claim demanding access to and partial ownership of the correspondence, arguing that the letters should pass through Harry and eventually reach their children. The prince lowered the document onto the table. Disbelief came first. Then came something colder, a sharp sense that his mother's private voice had been treated like property waiting to be divided. The room tightened around him. Windsor Castle mattered because these boxes had remained under royal protection for years, guarded from publicity and private bargaining. The royal household, meaning the officials who managed the monarch's duties and family affairs, had restricted the material because it contained more than affectionate notes. Diana had written to senior courtiers, legal advisors, friends and palace figures during the most fragile years of her life. Those pages could expose fears, arguments, and judgments never meant to become weapons. William looked down and saw Harry's name repeated throughout the application. That detail wounded him more than Meghan's demand. He could not tell whether his brother had approved the claim, been persuaded into silence, or watched it move forward without full knowledge. Harry's connection to Diana was unquestionable, yet the future king could not accept that grief alone gave anyone the right to control words she had deliberately sealed. The custodian opened a second folder and produced a handwritten restriction attached to the archive. William read the documented instruction in silence. It stated that the most sensitive letters must never be transferred for personal publicity, commercial use, or private leverage. Meghan's request felt deeply dangerous. It did not merely challenge palace procedure. It crossed a boundary Diana herself had chosen. William closed the red archive folder with a hard motion, pushed his chair back, and fixed his eyes on the custodian. Who told her these letters existed? The custodian hesitated. Only a tiny circle knew the complete archive had survived. In that pause, William's shock changed direction. Meghan had made the claim, but someone inside the family had shown her exactly where to look. The argument was not simply about paper, ownership, or palace protocol. It was about who had the right to speak for a woman whose memory had shaped two sons in painfully different ways. William saw the letters as the last protected chamber of Diana's private life. Harry saw her story as unfinished. Meghan believed the archive could prove that history had misunderstood them all. Between those convictions stood a wound that had never truly closed. William remained beside the sealed cabinet, still troubled by the hesitation he had witnessed moments earlier. After Diana's death, her correspondence had been divided into personal family notes, constitutional material, legal exchanges, and a restricted collection withheld from general archival access. Constitutional material meant letters connected to the monarchy's duties, authority, and official decisions. The separation mattered because private pain could become politically explosive when removed from the moment in which it had been written. William carried a unique responsibility as the senior guardian of material linked to the future monarchy. Yet Harry remained Diana's son, and no royal procedure could erase his emotional right to care about her legacy. That truth made the conflict more painful. The future king could protect the archive, but he could not pretend his brother's grief mattered less. A memory returned without warning. William saw Diana writing late at night, folding pages carefully and sealing envelopes with her own hands. She had once warned him that private words could become dangerous, when others stripped away their meaning. Now those same words were being treated as proof, inheritance, and power. Meghan viewed the archive differently. She believed Diana's loneliness reflected the isolation she and Harry had endured after stepping away from royal life. To her, the letters were not dusty records. They were emotional evidence that the institution had repeated its old mistakes. That belief gave her demand force, but it also pushed her toward a boundary Diana had deliberately created. Then the deeper threat emerged. Meghan's request named 7 sealed exchanges by their exact archive numbers. One of them concerned a private disagreement between Diana and a senior palace figure whose reputation still shaped royal decisions. An outsider should never have known that letter existed, much less how it had been classified. Catherine found William standing alone beside the locked cabinet. She watched him grip the key until its edge marked his palm. "I'm not frightened by what the letters contain," he admitted. "I'm frightened by how she knew exactly where to look." Catherine felt quiet dread settle over her. She understood that Meghan's request was only part of the danger. Someone had guided her. William made his decision. Before challenging Meghan again, he would speak directly with Harry and discover whether the brothers were truly facing each other or whether someone had carefully positioned them on opposite sides. But before that meeting could happen, an old private conversation resurfaced, proving the demand had begun long before it reached Windsor. Months before the formal demand arrived, one careless conversation changed everything. It took place after a memorial gathering, where Diana's name had filled the rooms, but her private voice remained carefully absent. As guests departed, Meghan stayed behind with a former royal archivist who spoke too freely about letters the public had never seen. The exchange lasted less than 10 minutes. Yet those 10 minutes became the point of no return, because they gave Meghan the one thing she still lacked: a map. The archive had been built from papers recovered after Diana's death, notes from private desks, copies held in legal files, and sealed family deposits placed under protected custody. A royal archivist is the official responsible for preserving sensitive historical records and controlling who may examine them. The restricted label did not mean the letters contained crimes or certain scandal. It meant they held private conversations, untested fears, and personal judgments that could become destructive if pulled from their original setting. Meghan remained behind after a private memorial dinner at Althorpe, Diana's family estate and childhood home. Sir Malcolm Vale, a former royal archivist, had spent the evening discussing how carefully the princess's life had been recorded. Then, his caution failed. In a documented account later given to investigators, Malcolm admitted that he told her 7 letters had been removed from the main collection and transferred to a Windsor vault under separate reference numbers. That was the trigger. Meghan heard control where Malcolm believed he was describing protection. To her, those hidden letters proved that Diana's full story had been filtered by the institution she never trusted. The former archivist went further, mentioning a handwritten note in which the princess had supposedly urged her sons to protect one another if palace pressure ever divided them. Harry felt the danger as soon as Meghan repeated the conversation. Inside their hotel suite after the memorial, she listed details Malcolm had shared, including the number of sealed exchanges and the existence of the note. The Duke warned her that his mother's private pain could not become a weapon in their present struggle. He had spent years defending Diana's memory, but he knew grief could be twisted into permission. Meghan placed her phone face down and looked directly at him. Silence is exactly how institutions keep control. Harry did not answer. His unease deepened, because she had already begun treating the handwritten note as support for a larger claim, that his side of the family deserved authority over part of the archive. Meghan believed it could prove Diana wanted one son protected from royal pressure. He feared it could instead destroy both sons. When William finally received Malcolm's recorded admission, The truth landed with brutal force. The coming confrontation would not be about access alone. It would force two brothers to decide whether loyalty to Diana meant exposing her words or defending the silence she had chosen. Armed with that knowledge, William arranged a private meeting where politeness would survive for only a few minutes. The meeting began without aides, secretaries, or lawyers. William entered carrying Meghan's request in a plain folder, while she waited beside a cold fireplace, with Harry standing several feet away. No one offered small talk. No one sat comfortably. When William asked why she had demanded letters his mother had deliberately sealed, Meghan replied that Diana's voice had been trapped by the same system now trying to silence them. That was the moment his restraint finally cracked. The closed doors made the meeting feel more dangerous. Every phone had been left outside under security protocol, a protective rule designed to prevent private royal conversations from being recorded or leaked. William wanted no advisors shaping the words that followed. Meghan wanted no palace official interrupting her case. Harry stood between them, already sensing that neither side had entered the room prepared to retreat. William opened the folder and explained that the restricted archive could only be accessed with unanimous consent from appointed family custodians, the small group legally trusted to protect sensitive royal material. Even then, supervised access did not create ownership. No letter could become private property simply because one family member felt emotionally connected to it. Meghan refused to accept that distinction. She argued that Diana's suffering had been cleaned, softened, and repackaged until the institution appeared less cruel than it had truly been. Harry, she insisted, possessed a moral right to recover the truth his mother never lived long enough to tell. The Duchess believed those pages could prove that the same pressure had later followed them. William felt anger break through his control. "Compassion does not give you permission to seize her most private words," he said. Then his voice hardened. "You do not own her voice." Meghan did not step back. Instead, she referred to a letter describing a future household built outside royal control. The words struck the room like a warning. William knew that phrase came from a sealed summary. Harry turned toward his wife in visible shock, because even he had never heard it before. Harry's loyalty suddenly split in two. He wanted to defend Meghan from another humiliating confrontation, yet he also felt the last private boundary around Diana being crossed before him. His mother's pain belonged to neither the palace nor their present battles. William placed both hands flat on the table and demanded that Meghan name her source. She refused. Harry then faced her and asked the same question, quieter but more wounded. Silence answered them both. William closed the folder and announced that the request was frozen immediately. Every person who had touched the archive, reviewed its index, or carried its summaries would now be investigated. The family argument had become a battle over authority, and the next decision would belong not to the loudest voice, but to those controlling the locks, signatures, and legal restrictions. Behind the family's anger stood a colder system built to survive emotional storms. The sealed correspondence could not be claimed by affection, marriage, public sympathy, or even blood alone. 3 custodians controlled the archive, each holding a different part of the authority required to release it. Yet when William entered their chamber, he noticed something deeply troubling. One approval document had already been prepared, and space for a final signature remained empty. William stopped beside the table and read the heading twice. Control of the archive rested with 3 fictional custodians: the prince as Diana's senior royal heir, Crown Archivist Eleanor Graves, and an independent trustee appointed to prevent private exploitation. A Crown Archivist is the official responsible for protecting royal records and deciding how sensitive material may be handled. None of them could act alone, because the letters carried both family pain and constitutional risk. The rules were clear. Harry could request supervised access to personal material connected to his mother, but no one could remove, publish, inherit, or privately control the restricted collection without collective approval. That protection mattered because a single private letter, taken out of context, could damage reputations, reopen family wounds, and turn grief into public leverage. William lifted the draft authorization and felt betrayal settle inside him. The document would have allowed Meghan and Harry's legal representative to review selected letters in private. It was not final, but it had moved dangerously close to approval. Eleanor removed her glasses. In a documented account later attached to the investigation, she admitted that she had prepared the authorization after receiving written assurances that Harry personally supported the request. She believed the arrangement might prevent another public family dispute. Instead, her attempt to create peace had nearly opened the archive without proper consent. Then the evidence changed everything. Harry had never signed the assurance. Digital examination showed that the scanned message had been assembled from phrases taken from several older communications. The wording sounded like him, but the complete statement had never existed. Worse still, the file had been transmitted through a former household advisor who retained limited access after leaving royal service. Eleanor placed her glasses beside the document and looked directly at William. "This archive may not have been attacked through force," she said. "It may have been targeted through procedure." William saw the shame in her face. The archivist had spent years protecting Diana's words, yet fear of another public battle had made her vulnerable to manipulation. He ordered every box resealed and every access code replaced. But before the new locks were registered, a secure call reached the chamber. Descriptions of 2 letters had already been given to a journalist. The correspondence remained inside Windsor, yet its secrets had begun escaping, and the first consequences struck the family before sunset. By evening, the demand had become impossible to contain. Harry learned that his name had been used to support an application he had never approved, while Meghan discovered that William had suspended all access to Diana's archive. Across Windsor, doors closed, calls were cancelled, and trusted advisors stopped speaking freely. The most painful reaction came in silence. Harry sat alone with a copy of the request, realizing that his mother's memory had become the ground on which his marriage and brotherhood were colliding. William signed the suspension order without hesitation. Every person, including the prince himself, was blocked from examining the correspondence, until investigators discovered how the archive numbers and private summaries had escaped. The order mattered because continued access could destroy evidence, deepen the leak, or allow another document to be twisted before its meaning was checked. Meghan's representatives received a colder message. Her ownership claim had no legal standing, and any future request would have to come directly from Harry under supervised conditions. Supervised access meant he could read approved personal material, while an archive official remained present, but he could not remove, copy, publish, or privately control it. Harry carried the request into a closed room and confronted Meghan. He pointed to the language claiming that he fully supported the application and asked why she had spoken for him. She insisted she had acted for their family because she feared he would retreat the moment palace pressure began. To her, waiting meant surrender. Meghan felt the distance between them deepen when Harry refused that defense. He told her protecting Diana's legacy could not mean ignoring boundaries his mother had deliberately created. She heard abandonment in his words. He heard the same dangerous certainty that had already placed them against William. Then investigators delivered the discovery. Sir Malcolm Vale had sent Meghan a private index containing summaries of all 7 restricted letters. A documented digital report confirmed the transfer and traced it to his personal account. The index contained no complete correspondence, but one summary had been changed. Its altered wording suggested Diana wanted Harry to remove personal material from royal custody if he ever felt threatened by the institution. Harry placed that version beside an authenticated copy. He traced the changed sentence with his finger, comparing each word until the deception became undeniable. "Someone rewrote my mother's intention," he whispered. William received the same finding in his office. He closed his eyes, relieved that the original letters remained secure, yet devastated by how easily Diana's name had been reshaped into a weapon. The future king expected anger from his brother. Instead, Harry sent one direct request. He wanted to meet William alone, without Meghan, Catherine, advisors, or palace lawyers. For the first time since the demand began, the conflict moved away from legal claims and back toward the two sons Diana had once begged to protect each other. William and Harry met after midnight in the small room where part of Diana's personal archive had once been catalogued. There were no officials between them, and no wives waiting inside the door. On the table rested one sealed letter, addressed jointly to both sons, a letter neither had ever chosen to open. For several minutes they said nothing. Then Harry admitted that Meghan's demand had gone too far, and William admitted that fear had made him treat his brother like a threat. The envelope carried instructions written years earlier. Diana had allowed her sons to open it together only if they believed their relationship faced permanent damage. A jointly addressed letter meant neither brother could claim it alone. Both had to be present and agree before the seal was broken. William had resisted for years because he feared turning their mother's words into a solution for mistakes they were responsible for facing themselves. Harry spoke first. He told William he had never authorized Meghan's ownership claim, but he did not hide behind that truth. During moments of anger toward the palace, he had described the restricted archive and spoken about letters he believed might explain Diana's suffering. Those conversations gave Meghan the belief that recovering the material would defend him. William listened without interrupting. Then he admitted his own failure. He had sometimes behaved as though protecting Diana's memory belonged more to the future king than to the younger son. Duty had become control. Fear had become suspicion. In trying to guard their mother, he had made Harry feel pushed outside her legacy. The letter waited between them. William broke the seal, and Harry unfolded the pages. No political secret appeared. No accusation condemned the palace. No hidden instruction granted either son control over the past. Diana had written only a plea. Never allow other people to define your brother's motives when pain makes trust difficult. Harry reached the final paragraph and began reading aloud. His voice broke when the words turned toward the private correspondence. Their mother had asked that her letters remain protected unless both sons agreed that disclosure served compassion rather than revenge. William reached across the table and steadied the page. He did not take it away. Grief filled the silence, but it had changed. Neither man was using it to win. Both were finally using it to understand what they were about to lose. Together, they drafted a decision rejecting Meghan's ownership claim while granting Harry supervised access to clearly personal family letters. The archive would remain protected, but he would no longer be treated like an outsider to his own mother's memory. The brothers had reached their decision privately, but by morning, the world had already formed its own verdict from leaked fragments and dramatic headlines. At dawn, the private dispute became a public storm. A newspaper appeared with a black front page, Diana's silhouette at its center, and the headline, "Who Owns the Princess's Last Words?" Broadcasters gathered outside Windsor, commentators divided the brothers into rival camps, and crowds pressed against the barriers. Yet one quiet image cut through the noise. William and Harry leaving the castle through the same doorway, carrying no folders and walking side by side. The story spread because it touched every raw nerve at once. Inheritance, grief, privacy, and Meghan's place within Diana's lasting legacy. The palace released a controlled statement, confirming that no restricted correspondence had been transferred, and every protected letter remained sealed. A palace statement is an official message issued to present the monarchy's agreed position without revealing private details. It brought legal clarity, but it could not stop the emotional judgment already forming outside the gates. Meghan felt publicly humiliated as headlines described her as a woman trying to take possession of Diana's secrets. She believed the language erased her concern for Harry and reduced every motive to ambition. The Duchess read one article twice, then set it down without speaking. What she had seen as protection was now being presented as intrusion. Harry refused to attack either his wife or his brother. That silence cost him. Meghan's supporters accused him of abandoning her under royal pressure, while William's defenders claimed he had allowed the demand to move too far. The Duke stood between both sides again, but this time he would not use anger to escape the pressure. The London Chronicle captured the public mood with one brutal front page. Diana's handwritten signature stretched beneath the words, "Private means private," while crowds outside Windsor Castle held white roses above the barriers. Broadcasters repeated the image throughout the morning, turning one private family wound into a national argument about who truly owned memory. Then the story shifted. A broadcaster revealed through a documented palace briefing that William and Harry had submitted a joint instruction to the archive custodians. The order permanently blocked private ownership of the letters, while creating a supervised process through which both sons could review personal family correspondence together. The revelation weakened the claim that the brothers had reached an irreversible split. Outside the gates, one woman placed 2 white roses beneath a photograph of Diana, one for each son. The gesture carried no demand for victory. It asked only that grief stop being used to divide them. Meghan now faced the final choice. She could challenge the brothers' decision and deepen the wound, or accept that Diana's private words could never become anyone's personal possession. When the cameras moved away and the headlines began to fade, the final judgment was delivered inside the family, not through punishment, but through a boundary no one would ever be permitted to cross again. The final decision contained no dramatic banishment and no triumphant winner. Meghan's claim was formally rejected. Sir Malcolm Vale was removed from all advisory access, and the altered archive summary was destroyed under supervision. More importantly, William and Harry agreed that Diana's correspondence would never belong to a spouse, an heir, a palace official, or a commercial storyteller. Her words would remain protected because they were hers. In preserving that boundary, the brothers recovered something more valuable than any secret the letters might contain. The archive trustees issued their final ruling before noon. These trustees were the independent guardians responsible for protecting sensitive records from misuse, private ownership, or public exploitation. Their decision confirmed that Diana's restricted correspondence would remain under protected custody and could never be inherited like jewelry, property, or money. The ruling mattered because it placed her personal wishes above family ambition and public pressure. Harry received the right to review selected family letters beside William, but the historically sensitive material remained sealed under Diana's original restrictions. That balance gave the younger son a place within his mother's legacy, without weakening the boundary she had created. William supported the arrangement because he understood that victory would mean nothing if protecting the archive destroyed his brother. Meghan accepted the rejection only after Harry spoke to her privately. He explained that continuing the claim would place their marriage against the clearest wish his mother had left behind. She felt the weight of those words. The Duchess had believed she was defending him, yet she now understood that Diana's memory could not be used to justify every modern grievance. Sir Malcolm broke his silence through a recorded statement submitted to the trustees. He admitted that he had exaggerated one summary because he believed opening the archive would correct history. Instead, his actions proved why private testimony needed protection from personal agendas. He had tried to free the truth, but he had nearly rewritten it. William and Harry placed the jointly addressed letter inside a separate family box. It was no longer evidence in a dispute. It had become what Diana intended, a message that helped her sons choose restraint, before anger destroyed them completely. The brothers stood together as the archive door closed. William turned the first key. Harry turned the second. Neither man moved until the custodian confirmed the seal. Meghan waited outside the chamber. When Harry joined her, he did so after fulfilling his duty to his mother and brother. No one had won, yet something precious had survived. Royal history is not protected by hiding every painful truth or exposing every private word. It is protected by knowing which stories belong to the public, and which belong forever to the person who lived them. There was nothing left to claim, nothing left to contest, and no secret powerful enough to outweigh the boundary Diana had chosen for herself. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.